own opinion. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't have to go online. You don't have to do any of that stuff. So this is just a way for you to recognize, there's certain aspects of your business where there may be room for improvement, and then, things that you need to watch out for. Okay. So to start, let's begin with strengths. So I think everyone has strengths. Something about, you being an owner operator or a small business owner, something that you're really, really good at. So let's just say, for example, you want to list at least 5 things that are your strengths. So I'll just throw out some ideas. Strengths could be your good driver. You get like 125,000 miles per year safely. You're very productive. Okay. Another strength would be maybe you have good business skills. You understand, um, you know, a lot of business concepts, and you don't necessarily have to do a lot to run your business smoothly. Some guys don't have any business skills, for example. So if you have business skills or business knowledge, that could be a strength. Computer skills, if you have excellent computer skills, if you can use all the latest technology with no problem, and you could do Excel spreadsheets, that could be a strength. You if you know how to type, that could be a strength. Because not too many owner operators are out there typing 60 words per minute, for example. So these are things of strengths. Let's see what else. Strengths. Maybe you have a good credit score. That would be a strength. Maybe you have emergency savings saved up in a health or in a savings account. High interest savings account. That would be a strength. Your maintenance account's really strong. That would be a strength. And maybe you have mechanical skills. That would be a strength. Not every owner operator has mechanical skills. So those are strengths. So what you would do is you're like, okay, I want to list at least 5 things that I'm really good at. That these are my strengths as a small business owner, as an owner operator. These are my strengths. Okay, everyone has strengths. Some may have more strengths than others, but just write down all your strengths. These are things that you bring to the table. It's like you don't have to work hard to get these things. You already have it. So the next category is weaknesses. Now, this is the part that nobody likes to do. This is the self-assessment part. Just when you gotta look at your small business, you gotta look at yourself as an owner operator, and honestly reflect upon what areas are you not so strong in. So if you're a steering wheel holder, for example, one of your weaknesses may be that you have like no mechanical skills, no mechanical ability. So you have to write that down. You're like, I can't fix a ham sandwich. That's a weakness. What other weaknesses would there be? Let's say you're overweight. Can your health affect your business? Absolutely. So you might want to write that down. You're just like, oh, I need to lose 10 pounds or more, maybe 20 pounds. So that could be a weakness. Let's say you have no clue when it comes to electrical. It's like when it comes to wires and stuff, you're totally hands off. That could be a weakness. Say, for example, you don't have any computer skills. It's like you don't use them, you don't have one, you don't see what's the big deal. You have no interest in learning how to use a computer. That could be a weakness. So computer skills could be a weakness. Low credit score, that could be a weakness. Uh, no money, that's definitely a weakness. I have a weakness that almost everybody has. Not enough money. There's never enough money. Even if you have money, there's more money to be made. So it's like there's never enough money. That could be a weakness. So you just go down through the list, pick out 5 or 10 areas of weaknesses that you have. It's something that you really got to be honest with yourself. You're like, look, I'm not being as productive as I could be. Maybe you're not driving enough miles. Maybe you're not as safe as you could be. So you're like, well, I've had a couple accidents or whatever. Maybe I should write that down on my category for weaknesses. So we talk about strengths, talk about weaknesses. This next one is O for opportunities. So what you want to do is look at those weaknesses and see them as opportunities. If you have no mechanical skills, well, here's your opportunity. Now you're going to focus on that weakness, and try to turn it into a strength, so it's no longer a weakness. So it's like, if you have no mechanical skills, I would start out with, like, take a tool inventory. Probably one of the reasons why you don't have any mechanical skills is because you don't have any tools. So I tell you right now, you don't have any tools, you have zero chance of fixing anything. So if you look at your tools, you say, well, let's start here, and let's invest in some tools. Then you will get excited when you start buying tools. Buying tools is a lot of fun. And then you want to, it's like, okay, I got all these tools, now I got to use them. It's very easy. If you really focus on mechanical skills, you can learn this stuff, slowly over time. And within 4 years, you'll be very strong mechanically. That would be like a goal. It's like, well, I don't know anything today, but 4 years from now, I'm going to know how to do quite a bit of stuff. So you turn that weakness into a strength. If you got weight to lose, that was one of your weaknesses. Here's your opportunity. Start figuring out how you're going to lose some of this weight and set goals. It's like, by then, this is your opportunity to learn computer skills. So, for me, it's like a foreign language. My weakness is I can't speak Spanish. When people start talking Spanish around me, it's like, damn it, someday I'm gonna have to learn how to speak Spanish. I haven't yet, but that's one of my weaknesses. And I would say everyone has weaknesses. If you don't think you have weaknesses, then I would say your overconfidence and arrogance is your weakness. So find weakness. I don't care what it is. Find a weakness. And keep it to yourself. You don't have to tell everybody what your weaknesses are, but turn those weaknesses into opportunities. I mean, inherently, what your weaknesses are. You're like, I know I need to work on my credit. Well, there's an opportunity. I know I need to save more money. There's an opportunity. I know I need to lose weight. There's an opportunity. I know I need to learn how to use tools. There's an opportunity. So there's strengths, weaknesses, and then there's opportunities. And then the last one, T for threats. These are threats to your business model. So, we're doing a self-assessment on your business model and as an owner operator. So what are your threats? What threats are out there for you and your small business? Well, competition's always a threat. It's like, well, you know, as truck drivers, do we have competition? We sure do. It seems like we have to compete against the world, for these driving opportunities. And then like AI, artificial intelligence, that's coming along, and these self-driving trucks, that could be a threat. And then you get crazy legislation coming out of Congress, that could be a threat. Anything that threatens, for example, truckers in general, or the 1099 independent contractor business model, like California AB5 could be a threat. The PRO Act, which is the union legislation they want to pass, protect the right to organize. That could be a threat to your business model. Um, Obviously, weather could be a threat. There's not a lot you can do about these threats other than be aware of them. It's like, well, there's these things out there that could threaten my business model. You need to keep an eye on them. And sometimes threats go away. Legislation fails to pass. The winter storm took a change in direction. You know, AI self-driving trucks turn out to be a big nothing. So that happens. So let's say your glasses are a threat. Oh, my glasses are a threat. Wow. So it never ceases to amaze me when you offer something for free, people still complain. It's like, you realize this is free, right? I'm not charging you anything. So, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a self assessment tool for small businesses and owner operators. Do you have to do it? No. Very few people actually, go through the trouble of doing it. But if you are going to do it, think about using a scale of 1 to 10. So let's say, for example, mechanical skills. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, you're a mechanic, and 0 is you're a steering wheel holder. Where do you fall in between? If it's less than 7, then you probably should recognize that as an area of weakness, and you might want to try and improve upon that. You can go do that all through your characteristics of what you think a successful owner operator would be, and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your computer skills? 10 being is you know how to use Microsoft Office, Excel spreadsheets, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint. You can do quite a bit with a computer. You can create charts and graphs, for example. That would be like level 10. If all you can use is a cell phone or smartphone, then you might be at level 0, and more than likely you fall somewhere in between. So there's an opportunity there to improve your computer skills. Same thing, you just go down through the list, scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate yourself on productivity, or how would you rate yourself on physical fitness, and how would you rate yourself on uh, saving money on a scale of 1 to 10? A 10 being you're a super saver. You pinch every penny, you save as much as you possibly can. And 0 means you spend. You can't hold on to money. You spend it as fast as you make it. So this is a way for you to really think about, your business. It's like, what can you do to improve? It's like, it seems like all you're doing is driving miles and just chasing that dollar. Well, there are areas you can improve, but first you got to identify them. And this self-assessment tool will help you identify those areas where you can improve. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.